Welcome to the Counselling Tutor Podcast, the must-listen-to podcast for students of counselling and psychotherapy. Here are your hosts, Rory Lees-Oakes and Ken Kelly.
Welcome to the special edition of the Counselling Tutor Podcast. My name is Rory and Ken is taking a well-earned break during this half-term break. So in this episode, we're joined by Phil Harvey, who's the current clinical lead for training at Kooth. Phil spent several years as an online counsellor for Kooth, focusing on working with children and young people. And we're also joined by John Stone, who works within Kooth's clinical governance team as a clinical trainer. John's role within the clinical training team is to support Kooth's practitioners, their training and development, and the wider clinical team with aspects of clinical governance. Our guests will discuss the work of Kooth, which describes itself as your online mental well-being community, free, safe and anonymous support. So with that quite a big introduction, welcome Phil and John.
Hi. Thank you, Rory.
So Phil, how would you describe Kooth? What's Kooth about?
So Kooth, I'd also like to celebrate that it's 21 years for this month that Kooth has been established. And I think we'd describe Kooth as a place for our service users to access mental health from a digital perspective. We are the well-established and largest and also now most trusted provider, particularly for the NHS. We work closely with the NHS England. We cover around 90% of England now, large portions of Wales, Scotland, and recently launched in the United States, again as a digital mental health provider. And I think as we kind of talk today, we can kind of think about some of those kind of different support mechanisms in which we're able to offer. Kooth is a great place. It's a great place that our service users really value. And I think it formulates a really kind of strong place within the mental health support mechanisms. Again, for our service users, we are flexible. And it's not to say that we can cater for all, but we can cater for an awful lot. And we really want to be able to support some of those some of the gaps, and particularly support services as well. We do work closely with a lot of services, so we're not looking to kind of replace or, kind of own the space exclusively, but we are wanting to support and ultimately reach as many service users as we can.
Well, I mean, thank you for that detailed and well-constructed overview of Kooth. Who are Kooth's primary service users? Who does Kooth aim itself at, Phil?
So within Kooth, Kooth PLC, we have our Kooth service for our 10 to 25-year-olds. And that's kind of, I guess, where the service has really been established, working towards our children and young people cohorts. And we have our Quell service for adults, so that launched in 2018. And it's a growing service, but we're currently available to just over 7 million adults within the UK now. So it's a really growing service, and as I say, accessible. And I think what really key to consider is it's freer entry point for our service users as well. So it really does allow for that kind of inclusivity and accessibility.
So this is a free online platform where people can get support for their mental health, and it's run by professionals for a wide group of people. And I guess this is anonymous counselling. People would log in through a dashboard. It's almost like a chat room format, correct me if I'm wrong. So what are the challenges of working anonymously, Phil, for the practitioners at the other end, the people who are kind of picking up the messages?
I think, some of the challenges, and as we talk about I think it'd also be helpful to kind of think about some of the advantages as well that this holds. One of the big challenges is, that kind of lack of body language, lack of tone of voice, from a kind of a counsellor perspective, that can be difficult to adapt to. But I think we can kind of balance that out with the perspective that from a service user or client perspective, that's actually really valuable, because it kind of reduces that kind of potential kind of feeling of being stigmatized or judged. So often when we look at a challenge, we're able to kind of think of it from a different perspective as well. The disinhibition effect is an interesting one, again, in the sense that it can bring up challenges. Often, within the online world, people's behaviour will be a little bit different, because of those disinhibitions are reduced. But again, the flip side of that would be what it offers to the service user. It allows them to open up, often quicker, often a little bit more freer, which allows us to then kind of have the foundation for, potentially where this counselling may need to go with the service user.
Yes, you mentioned disinhibition effect, and that is a phenomenon. It was first identified by, I think, an American psychologist called John Suler. And maybe you could just, for our audience, just kind of outline what the disinhibition effect is, because it is a specific phenomena that can present itself in online interactions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that the study goes back to around 2004, and it kind of I think it was six themes that were identified, and ultimately around how people engage in the online world, and that kind of "you don't know me" type of presentation, which within that can offer a sense of protection, but can also create an online persona, an online personality, which is may change in which people behave and interact online. There's that kind of invisibility, which again can offer a form of protection, and being shielded by the screen or being shielded by the technology that kind of separates us. So
I know that in some of the research, and certainly some of the colleagues that I speak to who do online counselling, oversharing is a specific issue within the online world, where people may overshare and give too much of themselves away initially, and then kind of regret it. I believe that's one of the phenomena. And in terms of confidentiality, John, how is that managed? How's confidentiality managed in terms of working with someone who, to all intents and purposes, is text on a screen? No disrespect to the service users.
In what terms, with regards to confidentiality, please, Rory?
Okay, well, we welcome then Phil, who's asking that question. And in terms of confidentiality, what would happen if somebody was, speaking with a therapist online and said they were thinking of taking their own life or thinking of doing harm to others? How would that be managed?
Well, in quite simple terms, as you've already said, this is an anonymous space for the service users, which is, I suppose, the unique point and main reason a lot of our young people come to use Kooth. And I suppose for the first time in their life, it gives the service user, if you like, all of the power. It's up to them what they share. We're quite clear in the contracting phases of chats that they understand what anonymity is, what limitations that brings to us as a professional with regards to getting them further support should they need it, but also gives them the choice. It's in their hands if they share personal identifying information, and we're quite clear what we would do with that, how we could help them further outside of the chat/Kooth process. But then it's all down to them giving informed consent, robust consent, that if they do share identifying information, what we will do with that, and that they're okay with that. And that's one of the beauties of Kooth, actually. It's in the service users' hands how much they do give away. And we're quite, we take that very seriously. Straight away from their first chat, first message, we are quite clear around anonymity and what that means. And if they do give too much away, they have the option to set up a new account should they wish to.
Yes, they could be literally be somebody else. And I think that's interesting. It sounds like John, it's truly anonymous. It's a truly anonymous interactions. People can be totally anonymous, I guess.
It's quite a beautiful thing to experience, and unique to Kooth. It's an extraordinarily powerful thing. Once the service user realizes that it is completely anonymous, it gives complete freedom for them to share their thoughts, feelings, emotions, what's going on for them right now in a way that they just couldn't do in a face-to-face world.
Yes,
so,
it is
incredibly powerful.
It sounds really, really powerful. And which kind of brings me to my next question, John. How we'd be thinking of creating a therapeutic relationship in a digital environment, and certainly one as unique as you've just outlined in Kooth's offering. How is it achieved?
Well, I suppose as a practitioner, you're thinking to yourself, what are the differences? And I suppose the main ones are, as Phil's already touched on, the lack of visual and audible clues, silences, the looks on faces, all these things we are taught to read when we do our counselling training, and also how you're going to take the spoken word and put it through your fingertips into the type word. And to be honest, that comes with training. When you join Kooth, we have a clear clinical training plan. We have a fantastic induction process, and it does take time to learn. We have extremely clear clinical and safeguarding policies and procedures that we follow. And actually, Phil's touched on a few things. It's about how do we build rapport? Well, the way you use the type word defines your personality to the service user. And we encourage through the assessment process to work with 3 separate practitioners so that they can see what's a good fit for them, how we're moving forward with a therapeutic relationship is going to work for them, what they want, to get a feel for how we are. So rapport is everything, but it's again, it's a fantastic thing. Your personality being able to come through a tight word, and when it dawns on you that you do have your own personality through the tight word, you become better and better each time you enter a chat. And same with the young people; they come back. They present as a unique person as well. It's fantastic. Yeah. So I with regards to building therapeutic relationships, I think it's quite easy, actually.
I think it's interesting that you say that people who train with you kind of are encouraged to develop their own kind of personality through writing style, and develop that side of them. I would imagine, and I dare say I'll get some letters in the post bag, that's kind of quite unusual nowadays. Most people communicate through audio or video, or in what I would call stilted text messages. So I'm kind of taken with someone developing a therapeutic writing style, and this is something that you would support practitioners in doing and find their voice through the written word.
Yeah, but at the same time, everybody who works for Kooth, they're all trained professionals. They've all got the knowledge. It's about them finding their own feet and finding their own presence within, and not everything can be not everything be taught. We can give them guidance and pointers, but, you know, they are trained professionals. They know what they're doing. We have very clear policies and procedures to follow. But I think an important thing, Rory, is the service users don't just have a relationship with the practitioner. There's a strong relationship with Kooth PLC as well. A lot of the feedback we get is it's about Kooth rather than about individual practitioners. You know, I suppose all the practitioners together, all the people who work behind the scenes, you know, everything we do is all fine-tuned into that practitioner working with that service user within that counselling hour, if you like. But the service users have a relationship with Kooth and also their practitioner as well.
Well, I mean, I think that's really clear, John. And just turning to you, Phil, how can Kooth be used to support young people between conventional therapy sessions? So I guess the question I'm asking is it a service that can be used as an adjunct to traditional therapy where a client may need support between sessions?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Rory, because of course we do offer the, you know, as an offer of intervention, we do offer online counselling. But to answer your question, this is where the offer of Kooth really does come in, and I think that's where we fit really well in the kind of the ecosystem of the mental health sector at the moment. So, as an example, you know, we may have service users that sign up that, you know, that they're aware that there's an issue. They're not 100% sure what the issue is. And through the assessments and through some kind of structured intervention with Kooth, it may be that part of the work is to get them kind of service ready, as I would describe it, or get them ready for a face-to-face intervention. So we'll kind of do that kind of pre-work. At times, a lot of our referrals will come, or a lot of our signposting will come via GPs who will, you know, it could be a young person or a service user who's on the waiting list for counselling. And we will offer an element of holding work. So again, they know that there's an intervention that's coming up. So we're going to offer some kind of here and now sort of intervention. But to answer your direct question around, you know, young people who are kind of already engaged within kind of counselling or therapy, what we then offer is, so we have an element of peer support that they can engage in. So we have a fully pre-moderated peer community within Kooth, but also from a professional perspective, we would offer what we call key working interventions. And that is where we can either work directly with services, with the service user, if the young person makes themselves known to us, or even if they remain anonymous. Again, we would work kind of indirectly with service, so we wouldn't be interrupting the therapeutic intervention. But again, we will be offering kind of a here and now kind of intervention. So kind of some kind of an element of kind of practical skills, or we could be working on kind of developing coping mechanisms, you know, for a young person. So we're kind of, again, we're very clear within the contracting and assessment stage of the young person. That does formulate a part of our assessment around, you know, other support services or their general support network, and where we will fit within that. So it's never a case that we're wanting to replace or override that therapeutic intervention. You know, we're very clear that we're going to take the back seat on that, but we will, you know, really support that. And we do a lot of that kind of key work and support.
Yes, it sounds like the service that Kooth offers is quite eclectic. Therapy, it sounds like there's some pre-therapy going on, and key working for the more practical elements that young people might find themselves needing. Would that be an accurate summary?
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of explaining it, Rory. You know, and I think again that really highlights the flexibility of our service. You know, what we're aiming to offer, you know, to service users, but also to services in which we kind of collaborate with as well.
Well, I mean, I think that is a very useful overview. It sounds to me like you just don't offer one service. There's a wide range of services, and maybe if practitioners are listening to this, and certainly if they're working with young people, they might want to look at Kooth. We'll put some details in the show notes of this podcast, so people can access your site and find out what you're about. But it sounds like there's a lot of work going on, and it's kind of more kind of eclectic. There's lots of services that could be offered. Finally, John, there may be people listening to this who think, I like the idea of this. I like the idea of working for Kooth. If a therapist wanted to work with your organisation, what would they need to know and in fact do?
Well, the first thing I would say is come in. The water's lovely. It's an absolutely fantastic place to work. The vision, values that we work to. Actually, if you go to koothplc.com and have a look around that site, it tells you all about us. If you click on the About Us page and Join Us tab, the current opportunities within the company are there, where you'll be able to see the overview of the roles and the application forms. Although no digital experience is necessary, what we do ask for is a minimum of 3 years of working with 10 to 25-year-olds in supporting young people. But as I said, no digital experience is absolutely necessary because we have a robust clinical training package and induction process and probation period. But what I would say is, if you're interested, come and take a look, because it is just the best place to work. What we do, what we offer, if you think about it from a service user's point of view, it's accessible, age appropriate, anonymous, available. There's no waiting lists or referrals. There's multiple ways to get help. If you want to have a change in your career with something that is completely different, and you feel like bit by bit you're helping to change the world of children, young people's emotional health and well-being, then Kooth is the place.
Well, I think on that very positive and I would say passionate message, I thank Phil Harvey and John Stones for joining us today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rory.
Thank you for listening to the Counselling Tutor Podcast. Find the show notes for this episode on our website at www.counsellingtutor.com.